I trusted the wrong person and almost lost everything, but I turned my pain into victory. I never thought life could change so quickly. For years, I lived a comfortable routine, between spreadsheets and numbers, immersed in the accounting world that fascinated me. My relationship with Renato seemed perfect. He was loving, attentive, and always said we were a team. But all of that began to crumble the night my father passed away. I still remember the chill that ran down my spine when I received the news, as if the ground had disappeared beneath my feet. My father's death brought profound sadness, but it also brought me the first sense that my life would never be the same. There was a huge void in the place that had once been filled by his protective presence, his silent but constant way of protecting and caring for me. I never imagined that I would soon discover that this void would also reveal betrayals and manipulations by people I thought truly loved. In those early days, amidst tears and funeral gatherings, I was introduced to the terms of my father's will. Something that was supposed to be an act of love and protection turned into a maze of legal rules, restrictions, and decisions that, if misunderstood, could leave me vulnerable to self-interested individuals. My heart sank when I realized Renato wasn't reacting as I'd expected. He began to show subtle signs of impatience and dissatisfaction, small comments about money that would have previously seemed insignificant to me, but which now took on a disturbing weight. I began to realize that his presence was more about the inheritance than the affection he demonstrated. It was a shock to realize that someone I loved could have such cold intentions. I felt betrayed, and a mixture of anger, sadness, and confusion washed over me. I was emotionally fragile, trying to cope with the loss of my father, while also beginning to understand the true nature of my marriage. For years, I trusted Renato, believing we were building a life together based on genuine feelings. Reality showed me that behind the smile lay a strategy, a silent manipulation, a single-minded interest. The money my father had so carefully left. At first, I tried to rationalize. I thought maybe I was misinterpreting, that my grief was making me too sensitive. But with every conversation with him, every small demand or comment, the truth became impossible to ignore. I felt my heart tighten, as if it were being ripped into tiny pieces. It was painful to realize that I would have to face not only the pain of loss, but also the coldness of someone who was supposed to be my partner. Every decision about the will required me to remain calm, but anger and disillusionment threatened to consume me. It was in this turmoil that I met Sophia, my longtime friend. She became my safe haven, the person I could confide in without fear of judgment. With her, I shared my initial impressions of Renato and my suspicions that he was more interested in this inheritance than in me. Sophia helped me see the situation clearly, encouraging me to seek legal and emotional help. It was through her that I made the most difficult decision of my life to date, to investigate Renato's every move and prepare myself to face whatever lay ahead. When I began to understand that Renato wasn't who I imagined, I felt a chill run down my spine that stayed with me for weeks. Every gesture of his, previously seen as affection, now seemed calculated. I discovered small lies, hidden decisions, and even attempts to pressure me into giving up parts of my inheritance, as if my vulnerability were an opportunity for him to benefit. The feeling of betrayal was overwhelming. I had lost my father, my most solid emotional support, and at the same time, I realized that the man I loved wasn't truly my partner. Grief and disillusionment mingled in sleepless nights, where I wondered if I would be able to survive it all emotionally. It was at this point that I sought legal help. I met Dr. Ricardo Mendez, my father's lawyer, and he was instrumental in showing me that there were strategic rules that protected my inheritance and my autonomy. Every detail of the clauses made me feel more secure, but it also reminded me of how manipulative Renato could be. It took patience and firmness to comply with each demand without giving in to emotional pressure. Anxiety consumed me, and each encounter with him required me to control my anger and remain calm, even when he made subtle comments to destabilize me. The emotional tension reached its peak when Renato began to show his most aggressive and manipulative side. He tried to convince me that we were together for love, but every word was filled with emotional blackmail. I felt trapped, torn between the fear of losing my financial stability and the need to break free from a relationship that was consuming me. There were times when I considered giving in, pretending everything was fine, but something inside me told me I could no longer give up my dignity. It was at that point that I realized my biggest struggle wasn't just legal or financial, but internal. I needed to regain my own strength and confidence. During this time, I rediscovered small passions that my father had always encouraged, but which I had neglected in the hustle and bustle of adulthood. Painting, photography, nature walks, and caring for animals became a form of escape, and at the same time, a form of rebuilding. Every moment I spent with Luna and Max, the dogs I rescued, reminded me that I could still care for something with genuine love, without hidden agendas. These small gestures became my emotional pillars, giving me the strength to face Renato's manipulations and the emotionally draining process that unfolded. Every day, my perception of myself changed. I was learning to listen to myself, to value my feelings, and to set clear boundaries. It wasn't easy, and I often found myself doubting my own abilities, but realizing that my happiness and security depended solely on me gave me a boost I hadn't had before. I began to plan each step carefully, sorting documents, organizing my finances, and preparing for the inevitable divorce. Each small but conscious action brought me closer to the freedom I so desired. The divorce process was more difficult than I could have ever imagined. Renato became even more cold and calculating when he realized I was gaining strength. Every meeting, every conversation was fraught with tension, subtle threats, and attempts to destabilize me emotionally. I felt my heart race, my mind swirling with thoughts of fear and insecurity. There were nights when I cried so much I thought I would never be able to rise from the floor of my own sadness. But at the same time, there was a voice inside me that refused to let me be manipulated. This voice, which I had ignored for years, began to grow and become stronger with each passing day. During this period, I realized that the key to survival wasn't fighting Renato directly, but strengthening my own life. I began investing my time in activities that connected me with myself, my passions, and my own rhythm. Painting, capturing moments with my camera, and walking in nature made me feel that there was still beauty and purpose in life, even amidst the pain. Caring for Luna and Max, the dogs I rescued, became a ritual of love and responsibility, reminding me that I could create something pure and true outside of manipulative relationships. Each small victory, each step toward independence, increased my confidence and diminished Renato's power over me. The turning point came one rainy afternoon, when he tried to pressure me once again about the inheritance. For the first time, I was able to set clear, firm, and unwavering boundaries. It was frightening to feel the weight of my decision, but also liberating to realize that I had a voice and could assert myself without fear. At that moment, I realized that true freedom didn't depend on documents, lawyers, or clauses in a will. It depended on my courage to be true to myself and believe that I deserved a full and happy life. After this confrontation, something inside me changed radically. I began to feel more secure, more centered. My conversations with Dr. Ricardo Mendez helped me understand that every step taken cautiously and consciously was a victory. At the same time, my friendship with Sophia became even more valuable as she offered me non-judgmental, emotional support, only genuine love. I learned to distinguish between relationships that strengthened me and those that consumed me, and this gave me the clarity to make firm, informed decisions. With each passing week, my confidence grew, and the life that once seemed controlled by Renato was now rebuilding itself in my hands. I felt lighter, even knowing there were still challenges ahead. The sense of control over my own story, the realization that I could be happy on my own and that my dreams still had room to blossom was priceless. I was beginning to realize that, despite the pain and manipulation, it was possible to find strength within oneself and transform one's life into something true and meaningful. With each passing day, my life took on clearer contours. I was rediscovering who I truly was, something that had been buried under years of complacency and manipulation. Activities that had previously been mere hobbies, painting, photography, walking, became central elements of my daily life. It was as if each stroke of paint or each click of the camera brought me closer to myself, reminded me that there was still life within me, beyond Renato's shadow and the pain of losing my father. Luna and Max, my faithful companions, taught me, without words, that caring and loving without expecting anything in return was liberating. The divorce proceedings progressed, but the tension didn't ease. Renato still tried to influence my decisions, manipulating situations to make me doubt myself. These were weeks of intense emotional exhaustion, in which my patience and fortitude were tested to the extreme. I even wondered if I would be able to maintain my sanity and resolve. However, each time I felt fear or discouragement, I remembered the silent promise I made to myself, not to allow anyone to control my life, and that I would rebuild my world with my own hands, even if it meant facing deep pain and direct confrontation. It was during these weeks that I realized the importance of creating a safe emotional environment. I began surrounding myself with people who truly cared, strengthening relationships that energized me rather than drained me. Sophia was by my side at every critical moment, offering advice and listening without judgment. I also began reflecting on my financial and personal life, setting concrete goals for my independence, from secure investments to small projects that brought me pleasure and fulfillment. The sense of control and clarity this provided was almost addictive, and for the first time in a long time, I felt confident about the future. When the moment finally approached to receive my inheritance, I felt a mixture of relief and responsibility. My father, even after his death, had protected not only my assets but also my autonomy. The strict rules of his will taught me resilience, patience, and the importance of not giving in to Renato's manipulation. I knew that in accepting my inheritance, it wasn't just about money, but about freedom. The freedom to live according to my choices, my values, and my dreams, without the shadow of toxic relationships or other people's interests. During this period, my personal life blossomed in surprising ways. I began reconnecting with old friends, resuming projects I'd abandoned, and above all, respecting myself and valuing my own decisions. With each step, I realized that the pain I'd suffered hadn't been in vain. It prepared me to see clearly, act decisively, and build a life that was my own. The sense of autonomy, combined with the genuine affection of people who truly mattered, brought a feeling of gratitude and empowerment I'd never experienced before. I was becoming the truest and strongest version of myself. The day I received confirmation that the inheritance would be entirely mine was like a breath of freedom I hadn't even known I needed to feel. I had endured months of anxiety, manipulation, doubt, and sleepless nights. But in that moment, I realized it had all been worth it. The weight I'd been carrying on my shoulders, fear, insecurity, and frustration, finally began to melt away, replaced by a sense of strength, clarity, and autonomy. Every decision I'd made to protect my inheritance and my sanity had shaped me for this moment. With the inheritance in my hands, I felt a deep desire to transform it into something bigger than myself. Part of the estate was donated to charities and causes I've always admired, including animal welfare organizations and community art projects. This gesture not only honored my father's memory, but also allowed me to channel the pain and struggle I experienced into something positive that would have a real impact on the lives of others. For the first time, I realized that my power lay not only in having financial resources, but in being able to use them to create value and generate good. My personal life transformed gradually and profoundly. I began to rediscover passions that had been dormant, painting freely, capturing the beauty of nature through photography, and hiking with Luna and Max, breathing the fresh air and feeling part of the world around me. Each small achievement became proof that I could live fully without relying on anyone to validate my existence. I was finally at peace with myself, free from Renato's manipulation and able to decide what was best for my life. Reflecting on everything I've experienced, I realized that my overcoming wasn't a heroic or sudden act, but rather a daily process of small choices. I chose to trust myself, resist external pressures, and build a path that reflected my true essence. I learned that toxic relationships can make us doubt our strength, but when we reconnect with our values, passions, and limits, we can break free. The pain I felt was transformed into learning, strength, and clarity, and today I feel more aware of my worth than I ever have before. Today, I share my story to remind myself that it's possible to rise again, even when everything seems lost. Life has shown me that true victory isn't just about material gain, but also about emotional freedom, autonomy, and the ability to love and care for yourself. Recognizing manipulation, facing challenges, and investing in myself transformed my existence. The sense of freedom, independence, and inner peace I've achieved is something no one can take away from me. I've finally become the protagonist of my own story, living with purpose, joy, and authenticity. When I finally received my inheritance, I felt like a huge door had opened in my life. It wasn't just money, it was freedom, proof that my courage and perseverance had been worth every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of fear and doubt. For the first time, I realized that true victory lies not in what we receive, but in what we become by overcoming challenges. I became the master of my story, the protagonist of my own life. I decided to use this achievement to make a difference. Part of the inheritance was donated to charities and causes I've always admired, including animal welfare and community art projects. Transforming my pain and hardship into actions that helped others brought me unexpected joy, showing that personal resilience can become collective strength. Each positive gesture reinforced that the life I was building was true, authentic, and full of purpose. My personal life blossomed in unprecedented ways. I rediscovered old passions, painting, photography, walking in nature, and found pleasure in small, simple, and genuine moments. Luna and Max, my faithful companions, were more than animals. They were symbols of my new life, my freedom, and my ability to love without depending on anyone. I felt that each step I took strengthened my body, mind, and spirit. Looking back today, I see that each challenge taught me something essential, that pain doesn't have to break us, but transform us. I learned to set boundaries, trust myself, and value relationships that truly matter. The fear of being manipulated or betrayed hasn't completely disappeared, but now it doesn't paralyze me. It strengthens me and reminds me that I can choose my path, always with courage and authenticity. What once seemed impossible is now my reality. A full, independent, and happy life. I've rebuilt my world according to my choices, learned to love myself, and trusted my own strength. Each achievement, each step toward freedom, reminds me that overcoming adversity isn't a destination, but a daily journey. And it's on this journey that I've found my true power, my joy, and my inner peace.